Welcome to Season 2 of the Psych Sessions Network podcast, Teaching Matters, co-hosted by Rob McIntarfer of Lincoln Public Schools and Eric Landrum of Boise State University. These 10 episodes in our second season were recorded from the beginning of May through the beginning of September 2021. And as you will hear, we wander and meander quite a bit. However, there are themes for us that emerge, such as the roles that AP Psychology and IB Psychology play in U.S. high schools, the continuing challenges of assessment, and how scaling innovative pedagogies makes utilizing those principles all the more difficult. To take a deeper dive into understanding the IB Psychology world, we invited Casey Swanson, a Michigan-based educator, to join us as our first guest on Teaching Matters. We broke away from our typical conversations in other ways, too. For one episode, we chatted about Albert Bandura, and Eric shared some stories from his own personal interactions. One episode in Season 2 had to be marked explicit. And if I repeated that word here in the introduction, then I would end up having to mark all of these episodes explicit. We end Season 2 stumbling on what perhaps could become a subtitle for our Teaching Matters series here. See what you think. Teaching Matters. Oh, Rob, but Eric? I am not going to give you any more context than that, my friends. You'll just have to listen. Please enjoy listening to Season 2 of Teaching Matters. Oh, Rob, but Eric. Talk about grading.
Sure.
The joys of grading, if you want.
I already got an email from a friend, a high school teacher who teaches in Michigan, who says he was listening to the brainstorming one with in-group and out-group. And I got to figure out which one that is and re-listen to it because he says he gave him a bunch of ideas for his class. So that was delightful.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
We'll shout him out. Casey Swanson, great high school psychology.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he teaches psychology, AP psychology, and IB psychology at a huge high school in Michigan.
Yeah. And, I guess we're doing future planning for Season 2 right now. I would like to learn more about IB psychology. First, I'm getting the name of it right. I spent last Friday, one of the reasons why we didn't chat. Every year I go out to one of the local high schools, Timberline High School, which is actually the school that high school my two kids went to. And I do a multi-section presentation about taking the AP Psych exam, what it's like from a reader's standpoint. I try to give them a couple of tips. But then I talk about what it's like to be a psych major, what it's like to be at Boise State, going to college kind of thing. So we did that 5 times last year.
It's something.
Yeah, yeah. And, they had only been back in the classroom all together maybe a month and a half. Before that, they had been half of them there one day a week, half of them there another day a week on again, off again kind of schedule. So it's been an odd year for them as students and faculty too.
And with the extra idea of they're preparing for a standardized exam at the end on their altered schedule.
Yeah. And it's coming up. Well, I believe it's May, isn't it May 11th?
Yep. Coming right up.
For the in-person.
Yeah.
And then the digital ones are a little bit later this summer. There's 2 digital ones.
Yes. I just saw someone tweet about this and it's related to what we're talking about. Apparently there's differences between these national programs and what they're providing at the end of a pandemic year. College Board, both last year and this year, and I think they deserve credit for doing this, scrambled to make at-home testing a possibility. Apparently IB, and there is a person, a psych teacher out on Twitter that was asking about the differences. So why can one organization do it and not another organization? And I think it's a good question.
Yeah. And I don't know about the IB, if you get an IB score, I'm assuming Boise State takes it for some intro psych credit. And, students were asking me, I was telling them that, not every college institution will take an AP Psych test score and make it equivocal to a college credit. But, it'd be interesting to know, and I would assume College Board has that data. They may not be willing to share it, but, how many schools in the nation actually refuse to take it?
There is a list, and they maintain the list out on the College Board website. So you can get a PDF of all the schools that do accept it. But then you just have to infer that if your school's not on the list, that they don't. The information I don't think they have on that list, at least they didn't last time I looked, was what score is required for what kind of credit. It is supposed to be a 3, given the comparability studies from the College Board. It's often a 4 or 5.
Yeah, and I know different schools handle this differently. I know, for example, at Boise State, a 3 or above just gets you credit. There's no graded. There's no grade points offered.
Right.
But I do know of some schools where I've heard apocryphally from other schools that sometimes a 3 will get you a C, a 2 will get you, a 4 will get you a B, and a 5 will get you an A. So you can actually get graded credit. And, I would hope that the College Board, I would assume that they would keep their list up to date, because it would be a shame to not have a school on there, to omit a school that does accept it, because that would be a shame.
The other level of complexity is I think it can also be department by department.
Right.
There's different dimensions that you'd have to include on that list.
Right. So we might take the AP Psych over here, but my colleagues in physics might not take the AP Physics. Yep. They might interpret it differently, or they might only take a 5, for example, or maybe their scoring system is different for AP Physics. Maybe it's not a 0 through 5 for as much as I know about it. And no, go ahead.
Oh, there's a saga. Someone could write about this. It would make a nice article. Steve Jones, fantastic high school psych teacher at Drake. He and I and others used to post on something called the Teaching High School Psychology blog that has gone the way of the dodo because of Facebook. Facebook just overwhelmed it. But the blog used to be a place where we shared high school psychology news. Steve has a whole list on a series of posts on that blog about a saga of contacting, I believe it was Dartmouth, the Dartmouth Psychology Department.
Yep.
Have you heard of this?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. Yeah. So Steve learned, I think through one of his students who was applying there, that the Dartmouth Psychology Department decided to not give credit for the AP Psychology exam. He, being Steve, contacted them and just sought out some more information and found somebody there who was willing to talk to him about it. And they did it for an evidence-based reason from their perspective. They've got some internal, the way I remember it, I might remember it wrong, is they have some internal exams within their department that they do give the same exam across different courses. And they did a post hoc analysis, and students who had AP credit from the test didn't do any better on those exams than students who didn't. So they concluded that AP had no benefit for their students. Therefore, a passing score on the AP exam shouldn't confer Dartmouth credit, as evidenced by their internal assessments.
Wait, so let me ask it a slightly different way. So did the folks at Dartmouth give the test to incoming freshmen who were Dartmouth freshmen who had taken the AP Psych exam and they knew their AP Psych score, versus students who had taken the Dartmouth Intro to Psych and had taken that, what I'm assuming is a common intro psych? And you're saying that there was no difference between the groups?
There was no difference between the groups. I don't know. We have to look back at the timing of the test, because it would make a difference whether it was at the beginning of the course or at the end of the course.
Well, at the end of the course for the Dartmouth
right
general psych. But if there's no difference between end of course Dartmouth intro psych and the AP students, the no difference is the justification for accept AP credit.
Right. Yeah. So I think there was several problems that I think timing, those kinds of timing and comparison issues were pointed out. The other thing that got pointed out, at least in discussions, I don't know if it got pointed out on the phone call, is the College Board test, which is definitely not perfect, but at least is put through the psychometric ringer. as far as item analysis and item response theory and bias review and discrimination and item difficulty. And I don't think the Dartmouth folks had done that with their internal assessments.
Well, and, to the College Board's credit, they have, every year they're collecting psychometric data from
Right.
an N of about, 450,000 to 500,000 now on
Right.
their multiple choice. And, they have, this year, what will they have? They'll have 6 FRQs. They'll have 2 different ones for each of the 3 testing sessions.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I don't know if at Dartmouth or schools who refuse will actually have 2 open-ended types of questions.
Yeah.
And I would imagine a lot of schools with large sections of intro psych would indeed rely on multiple choice. I think your smaller sections, like at the community college, has the luxury that they can use different assessment devices. So I suppose you could be hypercritical of the assessment, but I don't think that's actually a good strategy. I would suspect that College Board has commissioned surveys or research, and the ones that have shown at least equivalent or superiority, they would be touting, and the ones that don't, they would probably bury. I mean, they're a corporation. They don't have to publish non-significant or results that are not in their benefit.
Right. And that's why one of the reasons I think it might make a really nice article. I would love for somebody to dig into this and use the College Board sponsored studies, which when I was involved were called comparability studies. And from what I think I remember, they were pretty much exclusively on the multiple choice because it was really hard to talk college teachers and students into doing the. But just based on multiple choice, they thought they found really good comparability between students at a whole host of universities who took intro psych, their scores on the AP test item, multiple choice items, and students who scored a 3, 4, or 5. So that's what they have to prove.
Well, and if we're going to have fun with doing live experimental design here, we add the notion that Regan and I played with a couple of years ago and published, which is to add a third group of same aged, age matched, but no college at all.
Yeah.
So what's the beneficial effect of an intro psych course, whether it's as a high school course or a college course? I mean, multiple choice has been sometimes called multiple guess or multiple gift.
Yeah.
So, if you're using that methodology, people will argue, well, psychology is just common knowledge.
Right.
So, let's just see, let's just test that hypothesis.
I'd love to read that research. A correlational study that College Board released, which the next time I get to talk about correlation and causation, I think this will be my example, especially if it's an AP class. Students who take an AP class, take the AP test, but score a 1 or a 2, examining their performance in college classes. Correlational evidence, a modest correlation, but correlational evidence that those students score better than other students in their college class. So what they're saying is there is a relationship between taking an AP class, taking an AP test, and maybe being moderately more successful than other students, or that predicts moderately more success than for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a student who takes intro psych in college and fails it and gets a D or gets a D and then retakes it,
right?
They oftentimes will beat up on themselves and say, I didn't learn anything. But if they actually went to class the whole semester and they actually tried all semester and they earned a D or an F, and earned F, which is kind of rare, and they go to retake it, they are oftentimes pleasantly surprised that I actually did learn things, and it's easier. It's classic relearning. And they actually did learn things, and they did retain some things, and hopefully they have better test taking strategies that time, or the stressor from the prior semester is removed. I was thinking, Rob, to some comments you made way back in season 1 about motivation, and I think when people are doing these studies, comparing Dartmouth students versus AP, you have to really think about what's the motivation of these students to do well when there's some comparisons here. And the other piece of it, which is really relevant, I don't think we can ignore, is there is a financial advantage for colleges and universities to not accept AP credits.
Yep.
Psych 101, Psych 100, whatever it's called at that institution, is a cash leader for generating student credit hours and providing stability for a department. So when 100, 200, 300 student credit hours are credited through AP Psych, it's really good for students. It feels good to parents that their students, launch on campus ahead. But at the same time, for department chairs, planners, budgeting, it's kind of like we lost some FTE.
I got to imagine it's a complicated algorithm if the algorithm exists. So at large institutions where you have people doing quantitative analysis in the admissions office, there's got to be quite a calculation that would go on with, well, if we give credit, we might attract X number of students, or we have X% chance of attracting X number of students. But if we give that credit, we lose X dollars. And that's got to be fairly complicated weighing that goes on, I bet.
We have what's called a graduation residency requirement, where no matter how many credits you transfer into Boise State to earn a bachelor's degree, there is a minimum number that you must earn, not necessarily on our campus, but through our credit system. You can earn them online through us. You don't have to literally be on our campus. But there is a residency requirement through a Boise State course number system. So 120 credits to graduate, you cannot transfer in 115 and earn your last 5 credits here, have a Boise State degree, because that's not a Boise State degree.
Yep, that makes sense. Related, I think, but jumping over to the IB world, I know a little bit about that world just because my daughter went through an IB program at her high school and recently graduated. And she graduated during the pandemic. So College Board's response to the pandemic was to spend a lot of money and work really hard to make sure there was an at-home remote version of the exam. And we could talk a lot about the merits and disadvantages of the exam, and that's interesting to me and probably nobody else. But the IB group had a very different response. What they did was run a big regression. Well, so in the IB world, students are turning in projects periodically, and those projects get graded on an institutional level. There's some reliability checks and things like that. As you know, in an AP class, the only evidence the College Board ever sees is the end exam. Mm-hmm. In the IB world, they see bits and pieces throughout the year, and then there's an exam. So what they did was run a big study on archived data. Students who got this on this piece, this on this piece, they have X% chance of getting this on the exam. They basically found the correlation coefficient or the regression between the pieces and the end exam. They ran all that and awarded those students that predicted exam score, even though they never took the exam.
And if a student wanted to protest or take the actual exam, was there an appeals process?
I don't know that detail. I suspect there was an appeals process. I don't think there was an exam because there was no way for them, without spending a lot of money, to make an exam that a student could take at home.
So was that process announced at the beginning of the IB school year?
No.
So
I can't say no. I don't know when that was announced. I don't know that for sure. I would be surprised if they were that far along with planning, if they were making that call, because we all know how hard it was to make calls at the beginning of the school year because nobody knew how long this thing was going to last.
I just wondered if the resulting scores were overly generous or overly conservative or overly liberal, I suppose.
Right. Yeah, that'd be interesting. And it is, in some ways, the IB score or decision is even more consequential for students because it's not just college credit. And for some students, it would be whether they receive the IB diploma or not. You can actually receive the official International Baccalaureate diploma if you take the right series of classes, pass them, and get certain credit on exams.
So that's an IB high school diploma?
It is, and it's in addition to your regular diploma. But if you enroll in an IB program, depending on the IB program, but a lot of IB programs, You'll get your regular high school diploma. And then if you reach the requirements, you also get an international baccalaureate diploma. Whether or not that's a big deal depends on who you are and what you plan on doing.
And then those IB credits, when someone comes to college, do those credits typically just transfer as credits, or do they transfer as graded credits? Do you know?
That's very similar to AP and college board.
All varies.
College department by department.
Yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I know there are IB schools in my valley. I know there are programs that have IB programs that are available.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know a lot about them.
The difference in emphasis, psychology is the only one I know anything about. The differences in emphases in curriculum, I think, would be another interesting thing for someone to write about. So as you know, College Board treats the psychology as a survey course where you should cover the breadth of psychology and you get to a certain level of detail. I'd say the AP test I think the AP test does a good job figuring out whether students know many of the more common concepts in psychology and whether students can apply those concepts. I think even the multiple choice questions do that application level pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
The IB psychology apparently does fewer topics, but at a greater depth. They actually have students reading some primary sources rather than secondary sources. And they have more of an emphasis on research methods and unpacking research studies and interpreting.
Do you think IB programs are more common at private schools and charter schools compared to public?
Probably, and they're probably more common on the coast than they are in our area. I get that sense. It's quite expensive to teach an AP course. You have to send a syllabus in and go through the College Board audit, and then you have an AP course. To teach an IB course, your high school has to become an accredited IB high school. Every teacher doing IB has to be sent. I think there's only 3 or 4 places in the world where you can get IB training.
Gotcha.
They have to go through IB training. And I believe if somebody's listening to this and they know I'm way wrong, please correct me. But as you know, students pay about $90 to take an AP course, to take an AP exam. You don't have to pay anything to take the AP course. I believe the whole process for getting IB students' stuff scored is between $300 and $500.
Okay.
So they're different.
Yeah, quite a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, just, I guess, an efficacy study, just, what they do, how effective it is, how you can compare them, who takes them, who rejects them.
Yeah.
What the challenges have been from high school instructors levels, as well as students, as well as college faculty and college admissions. It certainly is an industry.
It is. And the College Board's been talking about this a lot. I think IB's interested in it too. And our local schools are interested in it too. And I know Boise is. One of the big topics right now is equity and access to these kinds of programs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the enrollment at most high schools, enrollment in AP and IB courses does not mirror representation overall in the high school. And no one likes that. And it's hard. People are working on impacting that.
Yeah, the high school that I went out to last week, my kids graduated from that high school in 2008 and 2012. And I remember writing the checks for their AP tests. When I talked to high school students last week, the school pays for it all now. So I think it evens out a bit of that inequity.
That's great. Districts that can do that, I think, is a great idea. Our district isn't yet, and I wish we would. I went and talked. I didn't know I thought I was going to Flushing, New York to teach a regular AP psychology workshop, which is something that I do. This was right before the pandemic, actually. This is my last trip. What I didn't know was Flushing, New York was participating in something College Board set up called AP for All. Apparently there are some high schools, maybe some entire districts that are saying, everyone who goes to this high school will try one AP course, at least one AP course. And there's some evidence that increases representation in advanced courses.
That's awesome.